Hi, everyone. Thank you for being patient. We've had a couple of technical difficulties this morning. Thank you for being here. You see that there's no fancy background today, but we'll work on that for next week, in 2 weeks. So welcome to part 3 of our wellness webinar. And you'll notice that you're going to see part 2 on here, but this is actually part 3. I'm not sure how I overlooked that, but that's okay. I'm human. So how to take care of yourself while taking care of others. This has been really exciting for me to do for staff, for myself, for others. And since it's been on YouTube, I noticed it has a lot of views. It's garnered a lot of views, and that makes me really happy. So welcome. I want to say Happy May's Mental Health Month to everybody. All of us being in the field and those who are not in the field, a recognition of mental health, and especially right now during these trying times with COVID-19 and everybody readjusting to life with the new normal. And given that in May, we are hearing a lot of different things from government officials and politicians as to everything opening up, and that's causing a lot of people happiness, and it's causing others anxiety and angst. And I want you to know that whatever you're feeling is normal. That's normal for you. And part of why we're doing this is just how do we take care of ourselves during all these uncertainties. And I've said from the beginning that this series is not a presumption that no one is well. It's just to work in conjunction with what you're already doing to maintain our wellness. So you see on here, May is Mental Health Month, Silent No More. I like to refer to people who don't get help and don't reach out as silent sufferers, because there are a lot of people out there who don't know how to reach out, or perhaps grew up in an environment where it just wasn't okay. And many of us are blessed to have had recovery in our lives for a long time and learned how to be okay with voicing what's going on. And so I implore you, please let yourself be heard. Hurt no more, be heard. And you see on the right there, mental health stigma. 1 in 4 people will suffer from some form of mental illness in any given year. Break the silence, break the stigma. Not all pain is physical, and not all wounds are visible, okay? So we want to keep that in mind. We never know what somebody else is going through. And since this is a wellness webinar, you know, people don't know what we're going through. And by the same token, we never know what our neighbors or our coworker in the next office is going through. So it's important that we keep those things in mind. So again, Happy May is Mental Health Month. I've been seeing so much stuff coming out from Brian Bishop and others. Fun stuff like bingo this morning, self-care bingo.
Public behavioral health.
Public behavioral health, I apologize. And I filled it out right away. I was actually excited about it. So, you know, maybe engage in whatever you can when it comes to May's Mental Health Month. So, you know, I like to add some sayings in here. It's by Deepak Chopra, who's one of my favorites. Relationships can be impactful in regards to managing our emotions during self-isolation. Right now, we can be alone, but we don't have to be lonely. This is what really caught my eyes when I saw this, is we can be alone, but we don't have to be lonely. He adds, we are meant not to be lonely. We are meant to care for each other. We are meant to care for each other. We are meant to embark on love in action. One of the main ways to increase our capacity for love in action is to simply offer help to others, whether it is financial or by volunteering, any kind of help. And I would say that, I would go as far as to say that even a smile towards someone can be of assistance. One never knows, and I remember saying this in the first webinar, you never know how impactful your voice can be to someone else. Your encouraging word, your thank you, your smiley face at the end of an email, or a text, a random text. One just never knows. But again, we are not meant to be lonely. And there's a fine line between being alone and having solitude and isolation, right? So let's recap a little bit for those who maybe are just joining us. And as you saw, you don't have to have attended the first two. And Brian has those up on the YouTube channel now, the ones from before. So RAP is a self-designed plan for staying well and for helping you to feel better when you are not feeling well, to increase personal responsibility and improving your quality of life. The Wellness Recovery Action Plan helps people identify the most important components of staying well, and it's organized in 5 sections. Many of you already know this: the daily maintenance plan, stressors, early warning signs when things are breaking down, and the crisis plan. And just a reminder that RAP is now recognized by the Federal Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, SAMHSA, as an evidence-based practice, okay? So I've read this actually all 3 times, and I'm gonna read it again. If you're feeling pretty freaked out at the moment, you're not the only one. However you're feeling right now, it's okay. You see that little guy to the right? Some of us feel like that half the time, and that's okay. Fear, worry, anxiety, anger, grief, loneliness, panic, exhaustion, frustration, annoyance, they're all normal responses to this abnormal situation. We don't know how long this period of uncertainty will last, but we do know we can take responsibility for our own wellness even during a global health crisis. So a few sayings: there's a lot we can control right now, but we can take ownership. It's a lot we can't control right now, but we can take ownership of the things we can control. Worry is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but never gets you anywhere, wrote humorist Irma Bombeck. And the next one I have on here is Marie Curie said, "Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less." I think this is really important when it comes to wellness, and in listening to Dewan when she has her meetings, educating yourself, whether it's through the CDC, your local officials in California, Governor Newsom, our mayor, and understanding what is going on and making sure that you do understand so that you will have less anxiety, less grief. So you're just not out there questioning, and all the what ifs. So we're going to recap from our last 2. The first seminar, we went over the key recovery concepts, which again, many of you know, and feel free to type them in. I wanted to say that at the beginning, I forgot. Type in anything you want. If you want to say hello, if you want to say, anything. But your key recovery concepts: hope, personal responsibility, self-advocacy, support, education. And we also went over your wellness toolbox. This is a list of things that you have done in the past or could do to help yourself stay well, and things you could do to help yourself feel better when you are not doing well. And then in seminar 2, we talked about your daily maintenance plan. And this was describing yourself when you are well, and list things you need to do every day to maintain your wellness. Let me go back to the wellness toolbox for a second. Just to recap on the wellness toolbox, again, it's a list of things you've done in the past or could do, such as taking a bath, meditating, lighting candles, going for a jog, having a talk with a loved one, again, being heard. That's been a really, really, a word that I've been using with intent a lot lately is get yourself heard, and I use that for myself as well, is make sure you're heard. It can be really cleansing to the soul. And then the daily maintenance plan, describing yourself when you are well and listing things you need to do every day to maintain wellness. Some examples of that were, like I said, taking a bath, lighting some candles, taking your medication, drinking 8 bottles of water every day, going to work, not going to work, The awesome thing about rap and just, I guess, life in general is that we are all so different and multifaceted that what's going to work for Brian may not work for me. And when I say describe myself when I am well, I could be quiet, which actually does happen at times. And someone else could be just talking nonstop. And it's what you decide is well to you. And then we had it on the last time, the developing of cohorts or teams, and to email me. So I wanted to say for a second, some people emailed me and weren't sure what cohorts were. So what this would be was this would be about 8 to 10 people in each cohort or team, where that we would develop a check-in weekly, bi-weekly, a virtual one. You could actually even call in. You don't have to be on video, and it would not be public. It would just be those of us in those check-ins. I'm a part of 3 different check-ins right now a week, and I absolutely love them, especially right now that most of us are working from home and isolated from family, friends, even though things are opening up again gradually. It gives you a chance to just kind of, again, be heard and state how you're doing. And one thing that this has done for me is I get to hear from everybody what's going on. When I talked about that normalcy and your feelings, a lot of people are really cranky right now. And even though we may be in gratitude and stuff, this has still been a very challenging time of major changes. And if we all think back, being in the mental health field, you know, we gauge how one may be depressed or stressed over how many changes and how big those changes were, from divorce to moving. And this kind of feels like we just got hit by a whammy of all of them for some of us. But we're okay, right? You know, and if we're not okay, it's okay not to be okay. So again, the 5 key recovery concepts of RAP were hope, personal responsibility, education, self-advocacy, support. We went over those in seminar 1. And again, if you want to, you know, type in what any of these things mean to you. So I don't get to see these things as we're doing this live, so I get to see it later, or if you email me. So I'd love to go back and look at your guys' comments and stuff. Thank you. And I wanted to take an opportunity right here to, as far as support, to say thank you to all of you who have been emailing me. God, it means so much to know that these webinars are helping some people, and some have reached out to me by telephone. And so thank you so much for taking those times out of your day. So today's focus, what does wellness look like to you? Okay, so, we'll get to that in a second. So what does wellness look like to you? Stressors. You're gonna see stressors / triggers on these slides, because stressors is kind of the new 2020 word that's coming around, that they're trying to bring in, but most people know what triggers are. And stressors kind of throws people a little bit off. And then a stressors action plan. And again, I added on here the developing of cohorts, teams. I did hear from some people. I'd really love to hear from more of you. Know that your privacy, you know, is of the utmost importance during those and stuff. So, and you see to the right, for those that were in here last time, joined us, I had said that peace of mind was what hope was to me. And Shaitan Bhagat says, peace of mind, the most valuable thing in the world. Nothing's worth your peace of mind. And I agree wholeheartedly, 100%. So when I say, what does wellness look like to you? Wellness to me looks like this next slide that I just put on here. Wellness to me is just peace. It's peace of mind, whether I'm at the grocery store, I'm at work, I'm at home. For me personally, it is not, it's not really anything that I can touch. It's all in my head. That's what wellness looks like to me and what it feels like. Wellness feels relaxing to me, and it feels peaceful and very namaste, and not being at odds with anyone, and not being hypersensitive, and not wanting or needing anything, knowing that I'm using all of my wellness tools to the best of my ability. And I do want to say that even though we go through this, and we may have 100 things listed down, our wellness tools, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to feel 100% every day. And again, that's okay. I think that's something that I lack hearing in a lot of webinars and stuff that I attend and stuff, is that everyone's baseline is different. So if I'm not smiling 24 hours a day, maybe I never do, and that's okay, but I'm still very well. And it's okay to be you and uniquely you. So again, I want you to take a second just to look at this picture, and you see that this was actually going to be our background. It was going to be for today, so I'm glad it's on here. What is at the end of there for you? You know, what does wellness look like for you? What do you want from wellness? If you're joining us right now live, or if you're watching this later today or throughout the week, something brought you to the word wellness when you saw a wellness webinar. And I would love it if you could either type in the comments what wellness looks like to you, or email me if you want it private. But again, what wellness looks like to you. And when I searched through some pictures, I was quite meticulous in the one that I chose, because I love that kind of looks infinite. You know, the water and even just this little bridge, I can't see the end of it. And I just fell in love with it, because to me, that is what wellness is this peace that I get out of this picture. Now, some might hate water, so that wouldn't look like peace to them. And that it's infinite, because I can constantly learn. I can learn today from some of your comments. I can learn from maybe the lady or gentleman at the grocery store. Constantly open to learning. That's what it is for me. Okay, we're gonna move on to, and Brian, you can just let me know if anybody decides to put anything on. So we're gonna start with the stressors or triggers. Stressors, triggers are external upsetting events or circumstances that produce discomfort. Things like family friction, work stress, a baby crying, loud noises may be triggers for you. Awareness of these stressors, triggers can help you to prepare ahead for handling these external situations that often make you feel badly. Different kinds of triggers may affect you differently. You may feel anxious, sad, confused, or worried. You may begin to experience anxiety, panic, discouragement, despair, or negative self-talk. These reactions are normal, but if not dealt with, they may cause you to feel worse and worse. Knowing about your susceptibility to triggering events and developing plans to deal with them can help you to cope and avoid feeling worse and worse. And to the left over here, you see what triggered me. I felt excluded. I felt powerless. I felt unheard. I felt scolded. I felt judged. I felt blamed. That's number 6. I don't know where number 7 went, but we're going to go on to number 13. I felt like the bad guy. I felt forgotten. I felt unsafe. I felt unloved. I felt like it was unfair. I felt frustrated. So, again, all of these reactions are normal. We could have a room of 3 people or a room of 100 people. And I talked about this last time. All of our perceptions are going to be different. Our perceptions of the same event, and we know that from history, right? I'm thinking, Brian, what is that effect? The something effect? The Mandela effect, yeah. Where people remember things differently, so they perceive things differently. So we know that that happens, right? And so something that's a big trigger for me is unsolicited advice. I don't mind if someone says, "Hey, are you open for some input?" And that's something that we learn in rap, is to make sure that we ask ahead of time. Are you open to some input, or, and that gives you the opportunity to say, "No, I'm okay. Thank you." So that's an example of one for me. Another may be not getting enough sleep, feeling rushed, being questioned. Like it says on one of these that said, I felt judged, or I felt scolded, I felt blamed. And we all probably have someone in our life, right, that perhaps makes us feel like they're always a bit skeptical, and maybe even in your work environment you may have that. But again, this is how we're going to be going over having a plan on dealing with those things. So the next slide, a person's triggers are activated through one or more of the five senses: sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. The senses identified as being the most common to trigger someone are sight and sound, followed by touch and smell, and taste close behind. A combination of the senses is identified as well, especially in situations that strongly resemble the original trauma. Although triggers are varied and diverse, they are often common themes. And this doesn't mean that it has to be associated with a trauma per se, but just something that felt negative. And then you see to the right, identifying your triggers, avoiding stress, reaching out, staying busy, and keep learning. Keep learning about yourself. Keep learning about what triggers you. If you keep a notebook, or if you have a rap notebook, be sure to go into your triggers part and write down. Sometimes we deal with new triggers, and then we have to go in and add an action plan. The past couple months, I've heard so many people say they had to revise their rap for COVID-19 because triggers had came up that were never there before. I've read whole articles on people that talk about getting triggered over someone not wearing a mask in a store. And yet someone else gets triggered because someone is wearing a mask. We have this going on in the US right now, where people are being triggered by everything opening back up slowly, and others are being triggered because everything's not open back up. So that's a really good example of how triggers can be so different for people. Driving it can be a trigger for some people. So if you want, please share with us in the comments maybe some of your stressors or triggers that you go through in just a few words. Just something that triggers you that you can think of. The loud noises really stood out too, because in many years as I've taught rap and stuff, for some people it's music. It's as simple as music, or a certain type of music, lighting, balloons. So different things for different people. So let's talk about stressors and triggers identification. Let's think about your triggers and stressors for a second, okay? I want you to think about, what are they? And we're talking about something that brings about a negative feeling. It's often hard to think of your personal triggers. These triggers are specific to you. They may not be upsetting to other people. You can begin the process of identifying your triggers by thinking of times in the past when something has happened that made you feel badly. So the first thing I thought about right now when I was thinking about, I'm talking to probably predominantly people who are working in staff, is how many of you have received an email where somebody hit a reply all, and maybe you chuckled, but yet you started to see this influx of people saying, do not reply all, do not reply all, do not reply all. And I know there was one just a few months back that I looked at and I thought, well, that's kind of funny because you're replying to all as you're doing it. And someone once said to me, if you spot it, you got it. So perhaps if something's triggering you that someone else is doing, we might want to take a look at ourselves, but I'm sure that's something we can all identify with, is this whole reply all thing. And in reality, it's going to go away in a few minutes. It's not that big of a deal. Not to discount what anybody's feeling, because that's a trigger for them. So for them, actually, I shouldn't have said that. I should have reworded that. In reality, it's going to go away. The same as when I have a panic attack. I can tell myself, hey, it's going to go away. So I just wanted to use an example that we all might be able to identify with. And if you can think of any work ones, without using your supervisor's names or coworkers' names, we don't want to do that, but any kind of triggers. But let's be real. Can a supervisor be a trigger? Can a coworker be a trigger? Yes. Can a workload be a trigger? A lack of workload be a trigger? Again, anything can be a trigger. Poor Brian over here, his smile could be a trigger to someone. My hair could be a trigger. I had someone who said they couldn't stop laughing hysterically last time at my braids. Wasn't really sure how to take it, but it's okay. So let's give some examples of stressors, triggers. So when we go into sight, okay, often someone who resembles, and this should say and, not the, an abuser, or who has similar traits or objects, i.e. clothing, hair color, distinctive walk, any situation where someone else is being abused, anything from a raised eyebrow and verbal comment to actual physical abuse, an object that might have been used to abuse, objects that are associated with or were common in the household where abuse took place, and any place, this one is specific to abuse. This one's specific to abuse. And sound, and again, these are just examples. Anything that sounds like anger, raised voices, arguments, bangs and thumps, something breaking. I can tell you that in my home, I do not allow yelling, and I do not allow slamming of doors or cabinets or anything like that. It's just not allowed. Anything that sounds like pain or fear, crying, whispering, screaming, anything that may have been in the place or situation prior to, during, or after any kind of abuse. I want to use the word trigger or stressor for abuse, although abuse does fit there, or reminds him of these stressors, triggers, sirens, foghorns, music, cricket, chirping, car door closing. Anything that resembles sounds that a stressor, trigger, an abuser made, like whistling, footsteps, pop of can opening, tone of voice. Tone of voice, I've heard this for many years. Words of abuse, cursing, labels, put down, specific words used. And then the next page is smell, touch and taste. For smell, anything that resembles the smell of an abuser, tobacco, alcohol, drugs, aftershave, perfume, any smells that resemble a place or situation. Touch, anything that resembles abuse or things that occurred prior to or after abuse, like physical touch, someone standing too close, petting an animal, the way someone approaches you. I can tell you that for doing groups for many, many years, oftentimes we have people who are triggered by somebody standing too close behind them, too close to the side of them. They don't appreciate it. It triggers them. They need more physical space. And I'm sure working, or even perhaps somewhere else, you've done those fun activities where you see what your personal space bubble is. And, for some it's this close, and for some it's this close. And anything that's related to some past abuse prior or after that has to do with taste, foods, alcohol, tobacco. Again, these were just some examples. I had quite a bit of example pages, and it looks like I picked the one for abuse. That just happened to be the one that I chose for today. So if again, if any of these resonate with you, if you can think of any of your own triggers, please share them with us. The next part of your wrap plan, this is going to be your stressors, triggers, action plan. So we've gone over what a lot of possible stressors, triggers are or could be, and now we're going to have a plan for it. So you see this theme with RAP, right? Wellness Recovery Action Plan, is that we identify these things, but then we make a plan. We're not just identifying that long lines at the grocery store make me very angry. We are then making a plan so that maybe you don't go, at noon on a Saturday when there's 800 people there. Maybe your plan is that you go in the evening when there's not too many people there. When I first started doing RAP, there were a lot of things that I was able to plan without realizing it, or throwing myself into the lion's den without realizing it. Going to Starbucks at 7:15 in the morning and getting really frustrated because there were so many lines, and okay, so start getting it the night before. I recently bought an espresso machine, and for my birthday, I got myself that, and I wanted to have one at home. Why? Because the lines, for any of you that do go since COVID, and the very limited hours of Starbucks are horrendous. And so this saved me from even having to leave the house. Does it taste the same for anybody? Because I'm sure you Starbucks drinkers are asking yourself that. No, it doesn't. But it tastes similar, and it does the job. So again, the next part of your RAP plan is your stressors, triggers, action plan. So stressors, triggers are often something that you can't completely plan for or avoid, right? Back one, Brian. Because of this, it helps for you to develop a plan of what you can do if those triggers come up. A plan that can keep these triggers from worsening your overall health and sense of well-being. Your stressors, triggers, action plan is developed using the items that you listed in your wellness toolbox. After you make your list of stressors or triggers, you develop a plan that you feel will keep you from feeling worse if a stressful, triggering event occurs. So in going back to the wellness toolbox in our first week, if you guys have any questions about that, you can email me, or you can ask me for a RAP book, workbook. So the wellness toolbox are those things that you do every day to keep yourself well, and that might make you feel well. So as part of our plan, when we get triggered, I'm going to give you an example for me. So perhaps I get triggered because I just got some unsolicited advice from a coworker or a supervisor, and I just want to let it go. And so I go take 5 minutes and I do some deep breathing. And that's on my plan, is that I'm going to do some deep breathing and I'm going to give it to my higher power. I'm going to just let it go. Again, depending on what kind of stressor or triggers there are just some that we can't completely plan for or avoid. With these last couple of months, we could not have planned or avoided for a lot of what has happened, right? I have to say, I think our director and others stepped in and did a really quick job of taking care of us, and for that I am so grateful personally. So let's go to the next slide. So here's some examples of a trigger action plan. So again, we talked about a lot of triggers. You're triggered by something you saw, something you smelled, something you tasted, something you touched, something that has happened, something at work, something not at work, something at home. Here's some examples that people gave. Self-talk, breathing exercises, get myself grounded. No, it's just a flashback if you're having a reaction to one of the 5 senses. Journaling, asking for help, calling a friend or supporter, leaving an uncomfortable situation, shut down, don't say a word, catch my breath, focus on something pleasurable, figure out why I was triggered. It won't last forever. This too shall pass. These are all such great examples, and I really again want to implore you to ask for help, reach out, talk to someone, and let yourself be heard. It is of the utmost importance for us to make sure that we are not suffering in silence, that we are not dealing with stuff in silence and thinking that nobody cares, or I don't want to bug them, or as I spoke before in one of these, I'm a professional. I should know how to do this. I shouldn't have to be asking for guidance or a lending ear, because that's just not true. And the breathing exercises, there are tons of videos on YouTube if you want to learn how to do different things. Brian sends out on the Monday morning magazine meditations on there. I'm not sure if we can link one to this. If we can, I'll ask Brian. I've done some. Maybe we can link one to this particular webinar. Catching your breath, focusing on something pleasurable, again, figuring out why I was triggered, and I think that's a really huge one. So you see to the right that it says triggers and action plans, and if you want to use a notebook like I said before, or whatever you want to use, these are my triggers and action plans to avoid and or cope with them. So I'll share something personal, which I often do, and that's that many years ago I had to I chose to, in working with my therapist, keep a post-it note that said, "Wait, why am I talking?" on my screen. And I was in a really big team at that time. There were probably 20 something of us, and we had a lot of reply alls and all that, and I would get triggered by certain emails that would come in. And so what I did was I would wait 24 hours to respond, and I would look at that yellow post-it, why am I talking? And I would have to ask myself, what is my purpose for responding to this? Is it because I have something to add? Is it because I want to be heard? Is it because I'm angry? And by the time a couple of hours rolled around, I really could have cared less about that email. But it saved me from feeling a lot of emotion and stuff, and perhaps even getting in trouble, over these emails. So that's an example right there of something where I had a plan, which was to wait 24 hours. One of my biggest triggers action plans for anything is deep breathing. For me, that works. It may not work for you. And I'm talking even 5 minutes. I shared last time that even before doing this webinar, I sit 5 minutes, eyes closed. So of course you can't do it while you're driving. Eyes closed, deep breathing, and you'd be amazed at just how much something like that, kind of an activity that you have to find that works for you, will make you feel better. Lower your blood pressure, lower your heart rate, lower your breathing. You think about it, we start to breathe hard, we start to get anxious, our heart rate's going up, our blood pressure's going up. And to just give your body a second to just, okay, let me decompress for a second. So again, in that instance, that's for something like, I wasn't triggered by the webinar, but it's just to get me in the space that I want to be. So I use that for being triggered, as a wellness tool. So there are things in your wrap plan that may be throughout your book, that may be throughout your plan, common themes that you'll start to notice. So let's go on to the next one, which was a huge one. This too shall pass. I just had a birthday last week, and if there's anything I've learned as I've grew older, and that I do love about getting older, is that life is a roller coaster and stuff passes. And I've been saying that for years to my son. It's a roller coaster. It's going to be up here, and then it's going to be here, and then it's going to be here, and one just never knows. But the great thing is that the horrendous things do tend to pass. And if they don't, you know, I'm not talking about things like depression and stuff like that, or a physical ailment, or, you know, I'm talking about these external events that we talked about and stressors, triggers. Um, so that for me works. I have this up. I used to have it in the office before I was working at home, but I have it at my home office, just right there where I can see it. I have that. And I have another one that says 99.9% of everything you worry about never happens, because I tend to worry. And I look at that and have to remind myself, are you being realistic, Baltimore? Because, you know, the sky falling down that you've worried about your whole life, or being afraid of your own shadow, well, your shadow's never caught up to you. So, you know, maybe you're worrying for nothing, and maybe something else is going on. And we'll talk about that next week in the early warning signs. So on this next one, and forgive me, I'm going to take a drink real quick. So this is something I shared with you that I'd really like to get going, is the cohorts and teams. And please email me if you're interested in being a part of a cohort that can virtually meet weekly for a wellness check-in. Again, this can be weekly. Maybe you just want to meet every 2 weeks. Really, it's just an opportunity for us to just get together and chit chat about how you're doing. Each person gets a, you know, say 3, 4, or 5 minutes, whatever's decided upon. And there's a wellness check-in question. So it's not something where you have to share anything too personal, or again, you are the boss of you. You are the expert on yourself. If you just want to share your name and I'm okay today, that's okay. This would be something really that I've been really excited about putting together, though. So email me, please, if that's something you're interested in. And there is a free Wrap app, which is available for iOS and Android. It's a great app. Like I said, it's free. So there's the picture of it right there. That's the one that you want to download. And the great thing about this is that you can actually email it to yourself. So whether you're at the store or sitting in your car or at home, it's something you can open up. You can work on it as you're wherever you choose. And it's something you can email to yourself. And you can save revisions, and it's a really, really good app. And something that I didn't share before in the resources that I really felt that that I wanted to this time, I had a few staff reach out to me in the past week about some different stuff, and I implored them to contact our employee assistance program. And it's confidential service with resources, including professional counseling available to support employees. They used to, I'm not sure how many it is now, you used to get 6 free sessions if you needed to. Maybe you just need a short term, you know, or you need to be linked to a therapist, or it's for financial assistance. Really, really great program. Please take advantage of it if you need to. Let them help you. That's what they're there for. I've used them a couple times in my career with the county, and they were really great and really helpful. And so there they are. So that's the employee assistance program. And last but not least, next time on May 26th. So some of you may have noticed that I went from Wednesdays to Tuesday, and that's because I didn't want to interfere with, there's a lot of other webinars going on Wednesdays. And I really didn't want you guys to have to go from one webinar to another. That doesn't really sound like fun to me, being in webinars all day. So I didn't think it would be to you either. So I really hope that you're enjoying this one. And so this will be Tuesday, May 26th from 12 to 1. And we're going to be focusing next time on early warning signs and action plan. And to give you a taste of an early warning signs, what is an early warning sign? An early warning sign is I'm starting to have a lot of anxiety. A lot of anxiety. Has that happened in Baltimore's life? Yes. And then what is my action plan? We've talked about your supporters. Which supporters do you bring in? Maybe one, maybe three, that know what to do for you or how to help you. And that could be leaving you alone. It could be running a bath for you. It could be encouraging you to talk to your therapist. Or it could just be, hello, talking on the phone and just listening to you. So that's what we're going to be talking about next time, is those early warning signs, so that we can go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let me stop this before it gets too bad. Let me stop this. I'm starting to get hypersensitive. I'm starting to not sleep. I'm starting to get some anxiety, or maybe I'm really pissed off at the world and I don't know why. You know, everything else is going on and I just can't figure out why. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to journal, you know, or maybe I'm going to do a gratitude inventory. And so those are examples of early warning signs, and then an action plan that you might take. And again, that's what we'll be going over next time. And lastly is, please send pictures, thoughts, ideas, etc. To me through email. Again, I want to thank you all for taking your time out during this busy time, for emailing me your thoughts, and it really means a lot to me. And yeah, if you want to send pictures of just anything, any of the wellness tools you're using. I know that with May is Mental Health Month, you're getting a lot of emails about, you know, doing stuff like that. But that's okay. You know, send them everywhere. And I would love to hear from you. So please have a blessed rest of the day. Oh, and before though, are there any questions? Anybody have any questions? Or comments? Any comments? Thank you, Brian, for reminding me. I felt like I was going over. I just looked and it's 12:50. Any questions, comments at all? Anything they'd like to share?
There's a little bit of a lag.
There's a little bit of a lag, so we're giving a little bit of time. And by the way, happy Mother's Day to all of you mothers out there. I know it was this past Sunday, but happy Mother's Day to you. All right, so everybody's quiet today. So hope to hear from you later, again via email, and have a blessed rest of Tuesday. Bye-bye.